Today's webinar, of course, as we have shared, we will be talking about why most culture initiatives fail and and what is the secret behind the success of others. If you would bear with me for a second, you will see my screen in 1 second. We will start in a minute. We've got some information that our partner, Pepe Minambo, is having some challenges dialing in, but we're expecting him to resolve that soon and join in the session. But in the meantime, we will start, and hopefully once his connection problems are done, we will be able to have him join our session. So let's first of all start by talking about organizational culture. What indeed is organizational culture? Well, we see organizational culture as the way in which the members of an organization relate to each other, relate to their work and the outside world compared to other organizations. And we see culture as something that talks about how we treat our team members, how we handle our work, and culture also is what differentiates us from other organizations. So culture is actually what differentiates one organization from others. It's how work actually gets done, especially when we find ourselves under pressure. So culture shows up in our decisions at work. Culture shows up in our trade-offs. Culture shows up in how we manage relationships at work. Culture is a very important element, and this is one of the reasons why culture cannot be something that will be underrated or understated in the organization, especially when rules are unclear, stakes are very high. Culture indeed is a very important element. So that is one of the reasons why culture is important. So culture cannot be changed by messaging alone. Culture has to be something that everyone should get involved in, especially the leaders of the organization. But why indeed is culture important in an organizational setting? Well, the statistics that you see right now on your screen indicate very clearly why culture is a very important issue now. Approximately 90% of executives, when asked in a research conducted by Columbia University, recently conducted by Columbia University and Duke University, 90% of executives said culture is important at their firm, and 92% said improving corporate culture will increase the value of their organization, of their company, but only 15% of leaders said that their corporate culture is where it needs to be. So everyone talks about culture, but very few organizations are successful in changing the culture of the organization. Most of the leaders say culture is critical. They invest heavily in cultural programs, yet the sustained behavior is rare. The changes that they desire to see, they find it very difficult to see those changes materialize. And the gap between the culture that they need to have and the culture that they currently have is the paradox that we're going to unpack today. Another interesting statistic, which is not a very good one, if you would say, is that around 70%, 66 to 72% of culture change initiatives fail. And this was a study that was done by Gartner and McKinsey. Recent study about 2 years ago and 2 years ago and 3 years ago. Almost 72% of culture change initiatives fail. And this is exactly the reason why we're having this webinar. Most culture transformation efforts, indeed, they fail for 3 main reasons. So if we get straight to the core of our discussion today, the 3 main reasons why culture change programs fail are: 1, the leaders lack commitment, number 1. They lack the knowledge to make the change happen, and they lack the right tools to make the change happen. So they lack the commitment, knowledge, and tools. So we refer to this in our work. We refer to commitment, knowledge, and tools as CKT. The leaders often lack CKT, and CKT, unfortunately, is the reason why a lot of culture change initiatives do not succeed. CKT, commitment, knowledge, and tools. So a lot of change initiatives, culture change initiatives in organizations fail because leaders lack the knowledge, they lack the commitment, the knowledge, and the tools to make these changes real. So let's unpack the issues around the commitment, the knowledge, and the tools required to make culture change a success. Let's try and see if we can unpack these to understand them even better, and perhaps to even question some of these issues so that we can find ways as leaders in organizations to make these changes real and make these changes sustainable in the organization. Well, if we dive deeper into the issues around commitment, knowledge, and tools, the first issue that we would like to zero in that centers on these three key problems organizations have. The first issue is the fact that leaders often reduce culture change to visible artifacts. And if you notice, the word artifact there is spelled differently, because in culture, when we say artifact, it's quite different from your artifacts, as in the paintings and the sculptures that you have. Culture is often reduced to things like posters or town halls or learning sessions or engagement scores. And these are aspects of culture. They're actually part of culture, but they don't oftentimes give the full picture of what culture looks like. And because leaders tend to change culture from the outside in, we tend to see a situation where organizations struggle because they are not getting into the core of what needs to be changed. So that incomplete view of culture tends to reduce the impact of culture change. Leaders, unfortunately, tend to focus on the expressions of organizational culture and not the core of organizational culture, particularly the beliefs in the organization and the behavior of the members of the organization, especially the leaders. If we dive a bit deeper into what culture is, you will see, as you see on the screen, the various levels of culture that when you make culture change happen in an organization, you should consider. The first level of culture change is what we refer to as symbols, or first level of culture. When you see the culture of an organization or even of a society, the first thing you will see about that culture oftentimes is the symbols. You see the symbols of the culture. And when we say symbols, we're talking about things like words, like gestures, like images and objects that relate to the culture. The way we dress, the words we use in the organization, all of these are parts of the culture. Yes, I see a question in the audience, and indeed you will get the slides after the session. We have your email addresses, so those of us who registered for the webinar, and you will get the slides. The next level of culture are heroes. So you will have heroes. So symbols, they're the most visible part, the way we dress, our logos, our flags for countries, our flags, the way we build, structures that we have. In the office, do we have an open plan office, or do we have offices with doors that are locked? All of those things are symbols. Symbols. Next to symbols are heroes. Heroes are role models of the culture. Role models of the culture. People that represent what is right and what is good about the culture of the organization. Heroes. And heroes usually will be in an organizational context like the founders of the organization or the leaders, the managers of the organization. In a society, the role models will tend to be, the founders of the nation or the people who led the nation towards independence or revolution or liberation, great leaders who have distinguished themselves in the polity. Those are heroes in the society. In an organization, they will be the managers, the founders of the organization, the CEOs, the MDs, the board members as well could be looked at as heroes. Heroes are less visible than the symbols because it's usually after you have entered into the organization that you will be aware of who the heroes of the organization are. And then the next level of culture we refer to as rituals. Rituals. And rituals basically cover things like greetings and meetings and religions in the office, things that we do on a regular basis. the rituals and the religions we maintain in the office. And just right now, I'd like to get a bit into the audience. If you could share in the chat box, and I would read out your chats. Can you identify some of the religions in your office? I will tell you one of the religions that I've been familiar with in many organizations I've worked with. When people travel on holiday or they go for a course and they come back to the office, they will bring with them chocolates. So chocolate is like a religion, sharing chocolates when you get back from your holiday. So if that is a religion in your office, please share that, or share any of the other religions that you are able to share. Please share them on the chat group, and I will read them out. So things that you do on a regular basis, things that are expected for you to do, rituals. So symbols, heroes, rituals. These three levels of culture dominate organizational culture practices. So when we talk about the organizational culture and the practices in the organization, symbols, heroes, rituals, they dominate what we see and what we feel, what we smell, what we experience in the organization, what we experience in the organization. And then there's another level of culture referred to as values. Values are the reasons why we feel very strongly about certain practices that we do. So values will determine the rituals, the heroes, and the symbols that we have in the organization. We usually say that values are typically what defines the culture of the nation, the society of that the organization exists in. Whereas the practices tend to define what you see and what you experience within the organization. They are connected, the values and the practices, but the practices tend to stem from the society or the societal background. The values, that is, the values tend to stem from the society or the societal background, whereas the practices are determined by the leaders of the organization. And Dr. Paul Klawiter, thank you so much for sharing. One of the religions in his office, he said, bringing foods, favorite foods from countries to share with. That's a nice religion. I would love to be part of that religion. And yes, I see a message from Japhet Kato. He says about the slides, we will send the slides across to everybody who registered. So once we have your email address, you will get the slides of the session. And you will also have access to the video as well. Right. So leaders need to be aware of these levels and understand that culture change has to happen at all of these levels. And one more very important piece of information is it is easier to change symbols than to change heroes. You will face a more daunting task convincing people that the heroes are not the heroes that you expect them to be than to change the symbols. So you can easily change your colors or change your logo or even change your dress code as an organization. You can change it over time in a very short space of time. But to convince the members of staff that that person who they have regarded as a hero is actually not a hero will take a bit more effort. Likewise, it is more difficult to change the religions, the rituals of the organization, the things that the organization normally does, on the business as usual procedures. What they do on a daily basis is difficult because they've been programmed into that. It's more difficult to change the rituals than to change the heroes. More difficult to change the heroes than to change the symbols. And of course, as you can imagine, the most difficult to change are the deep-seated values in the organization. How we feel, what we feel, how we feel. Those things are really difficult to change. And leaders need to be aware that when changes are being made, we have to go much deeper. Still talking about commitment, knowledge, and tools, another area that leaders usually fail to realize is the link between culture and strategy. Leaders fail to link culture and strategy often. And we remember that saying by Peter Drucker, culture eats strategy for breakfast. That it cannot be overexpressed. One of the most important reasons or most visible reasons why culture initiatives fail is that they are disconnected from strategy. culture programs often run alongside strategic plans rather than supporting them. So they are almost parallel to the strategic plans. The leaders rarely define the specific behaviors that are required to execute the strategy successfully. Without this link between culture and strategy, the culture becomes symbolic rather than being an operational aspect of the organization. We have said at the beginning that culture is actually the differentiator of the organization. Your culture is actually the people side of your strategy. If you have the right culture to support your strategy, your organizational performance will excel. Your organizational performance will excel. I actually shared this picture of the bike with the leaders actually at the bike. I shared this last week on Friday. Well, just thinking about culture and strategy. Your strategy gives you the direction to which you should go, right? And your culture is the energy that moves you in that direction. So your culture actually runs alongside your strategy. It supports your strategy. It should not be in parallel to your strategy. It should be part of that strategic plan that you have. Otherwise, you will not realize the strategic plans or the strategic targets and objectives that you have set out for. Now, another reason, still talking about commitment, knowledge, and tools, CKT, and if that is something that we will go away with, I would appreciate it if you will remember CKT after today, commitment, knowledge, tools, the three reasons why culture change doesn't happen. Another aspect of these three reasons is that leaders do not change their behavior. So they often will farm out the culture work to HR, and they would say, oh, let HR handle this. Or they might even farm it out to consultants like ourselves. So senior leaders oftentimes will exempt themselves from change. The employees will watch the leaders closely and they will mirror what they see. Then when that happens, the culture never really changes beyond the behaviors that they see the leaders exhibit. So if the leaders are like the picture we have shown here, they don't want to hear anything, they don't want to make changes happen, then the culture change will not happen. So I know that it almost looks like we're painting leaders in the negative, but I would like to caution about that. Leaders indeed have significant influence in making the right kind of culture change happen. But they're still the most powerful influence in the organization. And if they choose not to mirror the behaviors that they want to show, that they want to see, then they would have problems leading people. One of the reasons why leaders oftentimes don't change their behavior is that they actually don't know the kind of behaviors that they should promote. The desired behaviors, in many cases, tend to be vague. So many organizations describe their desired culture in broad, positive terms, very broad, positive terms. They use terms like accountability, collaboration, respect. These terms, they sound good, but they are not usually very defined. So different people interpret these words differently based on their roles, based on their experience, and based on the kind of power that they wield within the organization. So as a result of this, everyone agrees in theory that there are changes to be made, but people behave differently. And of course, a lot of the behaviors that we see, they will not align. They don't align with the kind of culture that the organization needs to build. Still talking about commitment, knowledge, and tools, CKT. Another issue regarding commitment, knowledge, and tools is the systems that are promoted, supported in the organization. Sometimes, many times, these systems, they reward the old culture and they don't recognize the change in the culture that needs to be made. So even when leaders communicate the right messages, the systems often tell a different story. So performance management, incentives, promotions, they might still reward the old behaviors that we want to change. And there's also the fact that you have informal power structures in the organization, or informal social control as we refer to it. And these informal power structures, they reinforce, what really matters in the organization. So if they're reinforcing the wrong thing or the wrong behavioral traits, those behavioral traits will persist in the organization and culture change will fail. So when systems and culture are misaligned, systems will win every time. Systems are actually part of culture, if you look at it in that sense. You need to ensure that the systems that you promote, they are representative of the culture that you want to change. So I talked about social control in terms of the systems. If you want to see a behavior, a cultural behavior change, if you want to see the change happen, promote what you want to see. So you have to promote it, and to promote it, you should reward it. You should reward it quickly. You should reward it consistently. You should reward it substantially. And if you want to eliminate a particular behavioral trait, penalize that trait, penalize it quickly, penalize it consistently, and penalize it substantially. If people come late to the office and you want to stop that, you should penalize late coming, or you should reward punctuality. And when you reward or you penalize, do it quickly, do it consistently, do it substantially, and get the message across. Right? So the leaders are heroes. Remember, when they see the heroes doing this, they would align. And still on the commitment, knowledge, and tools, CKT, another issue to consider is that the leaders sometimes, unfortunately, treat culture as a project. Culture is not a project. Culture is or should be business as usual for the organization. So oftentimes we have culture projects that are time-bound, there's energy at the beginning, celebration at the launch, and then attention moves elsewhere. If we don't reinforce the culture change, if we don't measure the change that is being experienced or expected, if there isn't any accountability procedure or framework, the behavior will quickly revert. And culture change will require us to be consistent, persistent, to sustain the change. And it goes beyond the campaigns that we do at the onset. So, having described what culture, the culture change should not look like, let's talk about what it should look like. What does successful culture change look like? Well, successful culture change actually is the equivalent of your change in attitudes and behaviors. And please remember, like we said, just like leaders could be the negative stimulus, leaders could also be leaders that we call the heroes in the organization. Please remember the levels of culture. The leaders are also the most significant stimulus for positive change in the organization. And how does this happen in terms of successful change? Successful change does many things, but we will say, first of all, it recognizes the complexity of culture. It has to recognize that culture has many layers, and we have to work on all of those layers to ensure that change happens. Successful change will align to strategy. It must align with strategy. Successful change will demand leadership commitment. The leaders have to bring the C in CKT on the table. They have to demonstrate their commitment not only in their words, but in their actions and their behaviors. Successful change also demands that there should be clearly defined expected behaviors. You should actually codify those behaviors, codify the culture you want to see in your employee handbook. Some people call it nowadays a culture manual. Yes, you have to put it down and say, this is what we respect, this is what we expect, and this is what we do not expect or respect. And in addition to that, you would have to apply social control like we have showed. You will have to reward the things that you want to see repeated, and you would have to punish or penalize the things that you don't want repeated. And lastly, your culture change process or your successful culture change must sustain reinforcement, monitoring and evaluation, and of course, adjustments along the way when you see that certain things are not working, to make the changes required to ensure that they work. So successful culture change looks very different. It is linked to strategy. Leaders must model the behavior that they want to see. You must have systems to reinforce them. And don't forget, perhaps most importantly, you would most likely need expert help. You might need experts to help you in making this change happen. However, I will put a bit of caution around the experts. Yes, you will need expert help, but don't outsource your culture change completely to the experts. Let the experts come in to build capacity so that the culture change will be sustainable and successful in the long run. Right. Now, a quick word on how we go about culture change, and in a few minutes we will be taking your questions and your comments as well. So we would like to hear from you, your questions and your comments. So please get your questions and your comments ready, and we will hear from you on these. A few points on how we go about culture change. We normally will start with a culture assessment, which is a 25-minute survey that every member of the organization will be invited to fill. So invite everybody in the organization to fill a 25-minute survey to talk about the culture of the organization, and we will use that to measure the actual culture of the organization. After measuring the actual culture, we will sit with the executives in a culture and strategy workshop to look at the optimal culture that can support the strategy, look at the strategy of the organization and the culture that can support that strategy. And when we have defined the optimal culture, we will now look at the gaps between that optimal culture and the actual culture that was measured. We will look at the gaps between these two. And when we look at the gaps between these two, we can now proceed to provide recommendations for change and assist the organization in getting ready for change along the lines of their strategy, recognizing, of course, that culture and strategy must align. They must run together. And then, of course, you can start your change process, which could take a while, depending on the size of your organization, depending on the age of your organization, and other factors. So you would use reports like this that will show over here, reports about that will show you what your actual culture is, the bars you see on the left-hand side, and what your current culture is, the bars you see on the right-hand side, the bars, I mean, your target culture with the bars in blue on the right, on the right, and the bars on the left, your actual culture, the culture that you currently have, to give you a picture of what your culture looks like so that you can know what to change, to deal with the K problem, the knowledge, to know what to change. So this tool, the T problem, CKT, commitment from the leaders, knowledge of what to change, how to go about the change, and of course the tools to help you see these. When you have these three, it will help you make the changes that you need to make. So you can easily see what changes need to be made. You can obtain advice on what changes you can get, what you should enforce. And beyond that, in terms of the leader's behavior, you can also do an assessment for the leaders as well to see where they have to change their behavior so that they can make their behavioral changes happen. And of course, you can give advice to the leaders as well. And all of these things, if you use the right tools, the T in the equation, you can be able to make this happen. Now, interestingly, we actually help organizations to build experts to know how to use these tools. We have a certification program that helps people in the organization and consultants and professionals who work in the field of strategy or culture or operational improvement or service improvement or other areas of professional work or consulting work. They can also use that certification and to learn how to use these tools to provide advice to organizations. We can get them certified so that they can do that. All right. So in closing, very quickly, remember again organizational culture, the way in which the members of an organization relates to each other, their work, and other organizations, and outside world compared to other organizations. We noted that so many culture change initiatives fail because of CKT, commitment, knowledge, and tools. The leaders don't have the commitment, or they don't have the knowledge, or they don't have the right tools to make change happen. And then, of course, we went on to talk about the fact that around commitment, knowledge, and tools, we have issues like the leaders often reduce culture change to just what is seen, the visible artifacts. Culture goes way deeper. They fail to link culture and strategy, which is a knowledge issue and a commitment issue. The leaders don't change their behavior, which is a commitment issue and a knowledge issue, because sometimes they don't know what to change or how to change, or they don't even have the tools to reveal to them what to change and how to change. Sometimes they don't define the behaviors clearly. The behaviors are vague. The old systems reward the systems reward the old culture, and the leaders treat the culture as a project. And we went on to say that successful change will demand a change of attitudes and behaviors. And there are 6 important issues there to deal with all of the problems we've mentioned around commitment, knowledge, and tools. To recognize that culture is complex, align culture with strategy. The leaders have to bring the commitment that is required. There must be a clear definition of the behaviors we expect. There must be the right application of social control, rewards, and sanctions. And of course, there must be a concerted effort to sustain the culture change by reinforcing the messages, monitoring what is happening with your project plan, evaluating it, and of course, making the adjustments where necessary. And we also shared our process for making culture change happen. So thank you so much for listening. In a minute, we will take your questions, but we do have some questions and discussions that will go on. Please, we would like you to please put your questions and your questions in the Q&A chat. There's a Q&A box that you will have. Please put your questions in there. Otherwise, you can type your questions and send to the hosts and the panelists, and we would read out your questions as we see them. Yes, we do have Pepe here. I believe he's here now.
I've been here all along. I've been here.
Oh, Pepe, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pepe. We do have a few questions, but just before that, just allow us to have a minute so that we can catch our breath while we share this video with you.
Welcome to the Culture Factor, a global leader in culture analytics and strategy advisory. We specialize in helping organizations leverage culture as their competitive advantage. Culture is a critical factor influencing organizational success, yet it remains a significant challenge for many organizations. Culture impacts over 58 organizational issues, including performance, retention, innovation, customer experience, diversity, and successful mergers. Since 1985, we have supported over 5,000 organizations worldwide to transform cultural challenges into success stories. Operating in over 60 countries, our clients include multinational corporations, government agencies, non-profits, and startups. We combine decades of expertise with cutting-edge technology such as big data, machine learning, and AI to deliver tailored, data-driven consulting solutions, tools, and training programs. Our work focuses on organizational culture, intercultural management, and consumer culture intelligence. Welcome to the Culture Factor, where culture becomes your competitive advantage.
Thank you very much. Thank you for staying in. We want to again just use this opportunity to let you know that we have a program coming up very soon in Uganda. Actually, for those of us who are connected to the Culture Factor, you may have heard about this before, but if you're hearing it for the first time, I want to use this opportunity as well to invite you to join our certification course. And with this certification course, you will know about the tools. You will learn how to use the tools to analyze the culture of any type of organization in the world. And you can become an expert in helping organizations change their culture. So the program details are below. You will also get an email from us about this program, and we look forward to you joining us in the program. So Pepe, we would like you to please turn on your camera so we can see you and have you on the show, on the webinar. Pepe, if you could. Thank you. There he is.
Yes.
Awesome. So I see that the name is appearing differently. Apparently, Zoom has a challenge today. So we have Pepe Minambo with us today. Pepe, welcome again. He's actually been here all along, but the Zoom had him on a different name. So Pepe, welcome and thank you for joining us. Have a few questions for you, and we'll be asking those questions in a minute. So, and after his questions, we will take questions and comments from the audience. So Pepe will have like 1 or 2 questions for you, and then we will now have people in the audience share their questions. So Pepe, very, very quick question. Why do you think culture initiatives are so often disconnected from the strategy? Why are they often disconnected from strategy, and how can leaders close that gap? You've helped a lot of leaders for over 2 decades, thereabouts, or almost 2 decades. So why is it often the case? Why is it disconnected from strategy, and how can leaders close the gap?
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. Yeah, greetings from Lusaka, Zambia. I'm glad to be part of this webinar. Thank you for the masterclass you've just taken us through on the why culture fails, according to research, and it's something very scientific. My practice tells me the reason most leaders disconnect culture from strategy is simple, Doctor. Is because they don't really understand the critical role of culture in strategy execution. And I've had few leaders that are vulnerable. They'll tell you, tell me, I understand strategy. What is this culture thing? What is culture? You have to take them step by step for them to appreciate culture. But I'll tell you, the moment they appreciate culture, they become the #1 culture champion and sponsor. Basically, it's because most organizations do not even understand the importance of culture, the role culture plays in driving organizational performance. I think the first place to start is education, is to educate the executives, is to educate business leaders, is to educate the masses on the value of culture, the importance of culture. That's what I'll say, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Pepe. Much appreciated. I have a question from Japhet Kato. I believe Japhet Kato is in Kampala, Uganda. And Japhet says, on rewards, starting work on time is a requirement. Should it be rewarded? What else should the leaders reward? What is the carrot? Say they can understand the punishing latecomers. So this is dealing with an aspect of culture like punctuality. So he's saying that should we reward punctuality? Should we reward people when they do the right thing? This is a good way to improve the culture of an organization. What do you think on this?
Mr. Japhet Kato is a senior executive, board chair, senior consultant, former CEO. It's an honor to have you here on the course. I would say yes. As you all know, whatever is rewarded is repeated, and whatever is not rewarded is ignored. And what the leader tolerates, the rest imitates. Culture is what you reward, culture is what you tolerate, and culture is what you celebrate. So whatever is celebrated becomes culture, whatever is tolerated becomes culture, and whatever is rewarded becomes culture. So I'll answer that question that way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And indeed, big thanks again to Japhet Kato. He told me that I should stop saying Mr. Japhet Kato. I want to call him Japhet. Very nice to have you on the webinar today. Thank you for your question. I have another question from Thona, and we still have more questions as well, but this is a question from Thona. Thona says, you mentioned that you will not suggest that an organization completely outsource their culture change to an agency. At what point does the agency stop the implementation of culture for such an organization? Or better put, when does the agency, the consultants, and Pepe, I guess you have answers to this because you've done this many times, and I can also chip in as well. When should the consultant hand off and step away?
Okay, in fact, this is a question that was discussed in the very room I'm in here.
Okay.
So we are driving this culture change program for this parastatal company. Now, when should the agency or the consultant leave? When should the consultant hand over? As you know, Dr. Okay, that research shows that it takes between 6 months to 18 months to drive the culture of an organization, to shift the culture, and depending on many variables. Yeah, the commitment of the leadership, the resources available, the learning curve, because in culture, you have 3 steps. You have the inception, you have the adoption, then you have the sustainability. And sometimes inception is a no-brainer. Adoption is what sometimes may take time for people to buy in. But then after they buy in, you must have a sustainability strategy. So the consultant leaves. To me, it depends on many dynamics. If the structural work, what I call the structural work was done well, is like laying a strong foundation and having a strong strong pillars established, then you have the team well prepared, and the resources are there to do all the preliminaries. I tell you, within 6 months, the consultant can leave. But depending on the process strength and weakness, it may take 12 months, it may take 18 months, it may take 3 years. I know most companies would like to take shortcuts when it comes to culture change. They say, why don't you do TOT, training of trainers? But the truth is, culture is complex. You see, the people that you leave on to drive the culture are not really expert in matters culture. These are engineers, they're accountants, these are IT experts. So I think it depends, doctor. There is no one size fits them all. To me, I would say depend on how well the structure has been laid, how strong the foundation is, and if you are lucky to get people that are so passionate about culture that they will carry on. And it also depends on the tone the executive set at the top. So between 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and plus, depending on all the dynamics I've talked about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if I would jump on what you have said, that is the same experience we've had looking at culture transformation. If you exit the consultants too quickly, the knowledge transfer wouldn't have happened. And the engineers, accountants that you talked about who are not experts in culture will find it indeed quite difficult to push that change until it becomes business as usual. And you're also very right to say about the variation in terms of the duration. Some organizations, we've seen some of our clients, there's a particular client who we worked with that within 9 months of a culture change, they were able to win awards. They were able to win awards. The entire nation recognized the change that they made, within 9 months. Actually, within 7 months of the change. And then some other organizations, you would have 5 years running and you still haven't seen those changes concretized. Of course, age of the organization, the size of the organization, the commitment of the leaders, particularly those things contribute to that. Thank you so much, Pepe. We have another question from Dr. Paul Clawither. He said, how might you motivate? Pepe, we will need you for this one, definitely. Your video is off, but I guess maybe you're coming back on. Yes. He said, how might you motivate leaders who are all extremely busy, totally invested in and occupied by their responsibilities, leaders that they're not opposed to efforts to change, but they allow others to care for that project, but they don't participate themselves as change agents. As I said, they could be required to participate, but what can be done so that they invest in the cultural change from the heart? So how can we get leaders who are too busy to buy in to this?
Thank you, doctor. We faced this this week. So we have a client where we created what we call the top 100 club. We put together the top 100 leaders of the organization because these are the people that set the tone. And our message this week to them, doctor, was culture is not AOB. Culture is not any other business. Culture is business, and business is culture. You've said it here. Culture must translate into becoming business as usual. So culture must run within the business DNA. Culture should not be on a special vehicle like you have in Canada where you are, or in Europe, bus lane, special bus lane that only buses use. No. Culture must be the mainstream, the family car. You put culture in the family car. So if you make culture as any other business, it doesn't work. Culture is business and business is culture. There's this book by Louis Gessner, the former IBM CEO, the man who turned around IBM in a span of 10 years. When he turned around IBM, he wrote a book. The book is titled, Who Says Elephants Cannot Dance? You can download that book on pdfdrive.com for free. And he said of all his years at IBM, he thought culture was something about financials, compliance, strategy. Then he came to realize that culture was business and business was culture. So when you separate culture from strategy, it doesn't work. Culture and strategy must thrive or must move in the same runway. It is one and the same because Doctor, if I go by your definition of culture, that organizational culture is the way the members of an organization relate, number one, to each other, number two, to their work, and number three, to the outside world in comparison to other organizations. So what does a business do? A business, people relate to each other, to their work, and to the outside organizations. So culture is business, business is culture. You separate the two, it doesn't work. So I would say, yeah, it's not any other business. It must be business as usual. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pepe. Much appreciated. Indeed, getting commitment, the C in CKT, as we've been talking about CKT today, the C is the biggest factor. And there are many, many, many ways, like Pepe has suggested, to do that. But it is something that you have to put on the table and do it deliberately. You could have sessions with the leadership. You could have discussions with the leadership to help them understand why culture should be prioritized. And again, this goes perhaps to the ultimate leader of the organization or the ultimate leadership of the organization. The board of directors would also support here. The board should emphasize to the leaders the importance of prioritizing culture and let them know that, as part of their assessment of the output of leadership, we will be also looking at the culture as well. So those are things that could be done to get leadership buy-in. Pepe, we have another question for you, still on the issue around culture and change. So many organizations, they use broad terms like accountability, collaboration. What happens if we don't clearly define what accountability is or collaboration? Because, people can define it in that way. If we want to change culture, we don't define it clearly, what happens?
Yeah, I say the most important thing is after organizations define the culture pillars, the pillars upon which they want to build their culture, based on the diagnosis tool, if the diagnosis tool reveals that a lot of the bad practices in the organization is because leaders are not exemplary, leaders are not walking the talk. So one of the pillar becomes, let's say, exemplary leadership. Then if there is another maybe diagnosis indication that shows that there are no consequence here, bad performance has no consequence management, then you say another pillar of the new culture will be accountability. So what you do is you must create what we call a culture charter. A culture charter will expound a little bit more what does exemplary leadership means. A culture charter will explain what does accountability means. So it's a summary of behavioral attributes and behavioral expectations on each pillar based on the new culture. So to every company doing culture, you need to create what you call a culture charter that expound into what do the pillars that you've chosen mean, and you go forward to translating the charter into a book. Doctor, you know that most multinational companies have culture books, whereby when you join in your induction pack, there is a book there on culture. And some of them will take like 4 weeks to take you through their culture book to understanding the culture. And then they ask you at the end, do you feel you fit here or this will be hard for you? So I'll encourage everybody doing culture to have a culture charter and eventually a culture book. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pepe. I couldn't agree more. Definitely, you need a culture book. You need a culture charter. It's so important to get that in front of the people when they join. Importantly as well, as part of that process, maybe you call it indoctrination or induction. The induction process has to involve that culture book, the culture charter. What do we mean by accountability? Accountability means this, 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 this. I'm a strong advocate for induction processes and or indoctrination, as they are called, processes. So in organizations, please, we would still like to get your questions or your comments as well. Questions and comments are welcome as we still have a few minutes before we wrap up. I see a comment from Mr. Japheth Kato again, and thank you very much, sir, for sending this. He says, thank you, Pepe, for your kind words and for your response to my question. He says, I hear you on what is rewarded and repeated. It is also important to reward exceptional performance, exceptional ethical activities, and exceptional social activities. These exceptional activities could inform the culture of an organization. Fully agree with you. Pepe, how do you see that? Please
Agree
unmute.
more. I can't agree more from Mr. Kato. So that's something I want to screenshot and pick it and put it on my slide. Tomorrow I'm gonna use it.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And for everybody who's joined, we still will appreciate, we still have 1 or 2 minutes more for questions or comments. So if you have a comment or a question, please type it in the Q&A box. But please allow me to again invite you to join us in Kampala, Uganda. Pepe and myself will be there as we will be doing our certification course in the month of May of this year, May 18 to 22 May in Kampala, Uganda. Come and join us, and you can get certified in knowing how to use culture tools to become an expert in this field. And that said as well, need to let you know that we will still do a second part of this series, because indeed there is so much to unpack on culture. So Pepe has promised that he will be here again next month in February, and we will announce the dates in February, and I believe there will be one more in March. Pepe, you will be available as well in March to talk a bit more about culture. So we'll be looking towards doing this with you. So this is basically part 1 of the series, and there's still 2 more parts. I see that there is a question on the Q&A. This is okay. It's a comment from Javed Kato. He says he will send you an invoice for what you have said, so for what he has shared. So gladly, Pepe will pay the invoice. He is able to. And I see a comment from Jane, or is that a question? A comment from Agnes Mugisha. Agnes Mugisha Ibarra, I believe. Yes. Agnes, thank you very much for your comments, and thank you for the discussions. Jane asked a question, and we have 1 minute to deal with this, Pepe. How do you kickstart a culture change to board and CEOs who have been long, and I'm emphasizing the long in an organization, and they don't feel or see the need to change? They've been so immersed, they don't see the need to change. Pepe, how do we tackle that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Jafet Kato. I think we need a scientific business case. As you know, in the 8 steps of change, Peter Cotter speaks about the creating a sense of urgency, a burning platform. To me, for such executives, you need a very strong case for change. You need a very strong business case that is backed up with data, that is scientifically structured. In fact, that's the only thing that can create that pulling factor, the pull factor for them to buy into it. They need maybe something more scientific, very strong, basically a case for change, a business case. As we know, one of the tenets of change is coming up with a reason that is so strong that nobody will argue about, and then they will find it logical to embrace the change. Thank you very much.
I think I see just one more question, even though the session is over, but I will answer this so that it will be in the recording. A question from Amina. Amina, I'm so sorry I didn't see your question in earlier. Amina said, thank you for the webinar. From your experience, where culture transformation initiative failed, how was the course correction handled? Amina, to answer your question directly, the way the course correction was handled was that those issues were put on the front burner. It was like the project was started again. So because culture is not a project in itself, so they basically said, let us do a restart and look at those things that were missed and start again. Do a fresh assessment, see where we are, where we need to be, and now start making the changes. So that's how the course correction was handled. This will be in the recording so that you can have it as well. Thank you so much for your question. And of course, we will highlight this in the next webinar, hopefully. Thank you, Amina. Thank you very much, Pepe. Appreciate this so much. Thank you. Thank you. I see a few comments in the box. And thank you very much, Alina, for your comments. And thank you, everyone, for attending. Indeed, this brings us to the end of our session. We appreciate you joining us. We will be here again next month, and we will let you know the dates ahead. So please be on the lookout in your email for the dates for the next session, and we look forward to you joining us. But in the meantime, I want to say thank you to the team, to Pepe, to Jane, to Catherine, to Ade, Queen, Amarachi, and all the other team members who have helped put this together. Thank you so much. Sheon, see your comments. Jane as well, see your comments from Uganda. And we look forward to seeing you in Uganda during the course. Thank you so much for joining. For me here, currently temporarily in Amsterdam on my en route Canada, saying thank you so much. Simon, thank you for your comments as well. Welcome to the session. We will send the recording to everyone so that you can join, and we look forward to seeing you in part 2 next month. Thank you very much. And as they say in Uganda, Webale. I hope I got that correctly. Eshe, as we say in Nigeria, Dalo Imena, as we say in Nigeria as well. And Nagode, as we say as well. Thank you very much. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you very soon. Thank you for sharing. We appreciate all.
Welcome to the Culture Factor, a global leader in culture analytics and strategy advisory. We specialize in helping organizations leverage culture as their competitive advantage. Culture is a critical factor influencing organizational success, yet it remains a significant challenge for many organizations. Culture impacts over 58 organizational issues, including performance, retention, innovation, customer experience, diversity, and successful mergers. Since 1985, we have supported over 5,000 organizations worldwide to transform cultural challenges into success stories. Operating in over 60 countries, our clients include multinational corporations, government agencies, non-profits, and startups. We combine decades of expertise with cutting-edge technology such as big data, machine learning, and AI to deliver tailored, data-driven consulting solutions, tools, and training programs. Our work focuses on organizational culture, intercultural management, and consumer culture intelligence. Welcome to the Culture Factor, where culture becomes your competitive advantage.